Hi there. Looks like we have Chris, Matt,
Morning, guys.
Kyle.
Good morning.
Morning, good morning.
Good morning, everybody.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming in.
No, thanks for letting me be a part and putting it all together. I'm sure everybody appreciates it.
Yes, yes. It's nice to
Hey,
make.
I just want to know how much you paid Courtney.
Oh, why? Does she
Hey.
not want to talk to you, Chris?
No, not at all. She's a good girl. I saw that on the list. I was like, wow, it's a slow day in the NCAA office.
Yeah, yeah, it must be.
I'm
She
gonna give her a hard time. That means my subscription should get approved here in the next 2 days if you got time to be doing this shit.
yeah, she was the one. So I had applied for in May an exposure tournament certified. So she's was one that the only person really I've talked to in the NCAA, and she was really helpful. So I reached out to her.
Yeah, she's good. She's good people. She's
Yeah,
been there quite a while.
Yeah, and she actually said that she she's been, this isn't necessarily like her job or role, but she said she's been fielding so many questions that she's had to step in for people.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you
Yeah,
guys for coming in.
How's it going, Jeremy?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
Hanging in there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
One day at a time.
that's right. Kind of playing the waiting game.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. So, okay, so I don't think I've met everybody here. Jeremy, I know you. We've texted.
Yep.
Awesome. Hey, Chris, can you rename your name for your video? That way, if people don't know you, they can easily.
Oh,
see who
sure.
you are.
Let me see if I can. Now you're asking me to. Let's see.
Yeah,
Where
Matt.
do I go?
Matt, I know that I've run into you one
Yeah.
two times.
We've ran into each other a few times.
Yeah.
How you been?
Good. Well, good and not good. So
Right.
it's,
Yeah.
you know,
Same here.
Yes. It's been an interesting time for sure.
No doubt.
Yeah. And then Kyler, thank you for joining. So yeah, just a game. Thank you. Cool. Thanks for putting that on.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
we chatted on the phone a week or two ago.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
thanks for putting it together.
Absolutely. Well, actually, it really all started when I was added to a list that Richie Davis from Wisconsin Playground Warriors had started. Long story short, this date wasn't going to work for him to host it, so I stepped in and was like, well, I'll host it. So, and I know there might be other meetings out there, but I really wanted to try and see what we could pull together and do. We got Bob and Corey Poole. Bob, welcome.
Oh boy.
Hey, Mary. Yep.
Corey,
Hello.
Here we go. Found it.
good to see you.
How you guys doing?
Hanging in.
Good.
There.
Sorry,
I
I'm
figured
in
it
the
out.
middle.
Lisa.
I'm in the middle of working too, so I'm gonna mute for a little bit here. But I will be involved.
Wonderful.
Can you hear me now?
Is that Bob or is that
Yeah.
Rob? Oh, Bob?
Yep, we
Yeah.
can hear you, Bob.
Oh, I should.
Okay.
I'm
I'm working too, so there won't be any video of me. So I have a face for radio anyway.
no problem.
Hey, don't let him fool you. He's just hanging out on the couch. He's watching Sports Center.
What's there to watch?
Yeah, Japanese baseball, man.
I'm already
Come on.
full that Korean baseball.
I'm waiting for the first fantasy Japanese baseball league to start up online. What are you talking about? It's happening. We're dying for some content.
Yeah, I was watching Bag Toss the other night. I just was like, this is just not right. Oh,
That's all right. I watched pickleball the other day. Whatever.
yeah, as you guys, I know we got Adam joining us. So as you guys log in here, if you can, just take a minute or a moment to add, if you know how to do it, add behind your name your organization, name of your organization. That might help if some people don't know each other, and it'll be easier just to see who's all here. Let me see what time it is. Okay, it is 10 a.m. I'm sure we're gonna have a few more people join in. So far, there's 17 people. Awesome, 18, yay. And I apologize, I'm not familiar with everyone. I copied the emails from a list that I was on and just tried getting as many people in this meeting as possible. We got a few more people joining, looks like. Wonderful. Thank you for everybody who's joining. If you can, thanks, Corey, for adding, if you can, behind your name, add the name of your company or program. That would be wonderful in case there are people here who don't know each other. I know that we have, I didn't realize it until late that the email list I was on really originally was made up of just programs that had boys teams or programs. And then so after I sent out that initial invite, I started adding some girls programs, and then other people that I know are involved in this industry. Looks like we have 24 people. Thank you guys so much for hopping on. I want to use this time as efficiently as possible. So I did send out a director's agenda, and I'm going to try and keep, Craig's joining us. I'm going to try and keep us moving along, but give us time to really get in depth in different parts of the agenda and time. So, so initially, if this was a smaller group, I'd have everybody introduce each other, but just to save time and to make it as efficient and impactful as possible, as you log on, if you haven't already, if you can adjust rename your name to not only your name, but also your program or business name, that would be great in case people don't know each other. And I am gonna get started. Looks like we slowed down a little bit on people coming in. There are 27 people online. So thank you everybody for coming in. My name is Lisa Van Wyk with Blaze Sports and Fitness and Wisconsin Blaze. I don't know about you guys, but it's been a tough time, and I'm sure for all of us. And I respect all of you for, great, Representative Jeremy Thies-Feltz just logged on. I respect all of you and everything that you're doing for our athletes, for the people that are in your sphere and who you care for. So I just saw this as an opportunity to get us together and see how we can support you individually, your family, your businesses. I've had the fortunate opportunity to be financially supported by my husband. So just so you know, I'm not pulling any miracles on our end. So from day one, we've just been investing and giving back to the families in our area and who've been a part of our organization, and having a lot of business background, education first, and then business with my husband. He's in construction. I know this is probably one of the worst experiences we've seen for us as professionals in our industry. And I almost feel like people don't understand how bad it is for this industry, because they might see an end date and go, oh, they'll be able to come back right away. But for us, the communication is, hey, we may not have a season this year. We may not be able to, bring in 10 or 50 people, or so what I truly wanted this time for was to support you, to provide us with strategies moving forward and sustainability, so that we can all move forward stronger, smarter. And Cheryl, make sure I get everybody else in here. So a little expectations, as for those who are logging in, make sure that your display name shows not only your personal name, but your club or business name. Keep your audio muted, please, as background noise does impact the conversation. And what we're gonna do as we go through this agenda, make sure to hold your questions until that person's done with a topic or in that session, just to keep it easier for, it looks like we have 32 people now. So that way we just make it more organized and give people ample time to ask questions and for the speaker to respond. I'm sure a lot of us may have the same questions, but please feel free when the time presents itself to open up and ask your questions. And just so you know, we are recording this. I won't hold anything against anybody. So in our polling coming up, it is anonymous, so you won't have to feel like, oh my gosh, you're letting all your secrets and information out of the bag. That's not the intent of this at all. Again, this is to support each other, because we can't move forward without working together. We do have for our agenda, we have Courtney Moore from NCAA here with us, Jeremy Thiesfeld, representative from Assembly District number 52, Fond du Lac here. We have a number of tournament directors from Adam Lagoki from the Community First Champion Center. We have, I'm not sure, I didn't get a chance to find our, the Barnes contact information, but I know Blizzard might be able to communicate a little bit about them. We have Kyler here from Just a Game, Matt from Sports Enhancement Academy, Chris Menig from USJN. Tucker is supposed to be coming in from Ohio Basketball. I wanted to try and pull in Prep Hoops, could not get a contact to bite for that, but maybe in the future. And then a couple other things. So in moving forward, I do actually want to start with, before we push out the poll, I want to start with Coach Rob Pearson out of Colorado. He's somebody that I met and connected with. Make sure nobody else is getting in. We met on a call that we were invited to be a part of with other directors from across the country, and from directors from Colorado, Illinois, Massachusetts, from California, Washington, and that actually has been really therapeutic to just be able to communicate and see what other people are going through, see how they're adjusting, what they're doing to sustain themselves, to implement new strategies, to move forward. But I saw a value, once Richie sent that email out, getting our group of directors in our state together is going to be really important for us to work together to move forward. So Rob, can you introduce yourself a little bit, tell people about you, and just give them a little bit of feedback on what you've done and how you would like to encourage them moving forward.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. So, hey, everybody. I'm Rob Pearson. I'm over here in Denver, Colorado. Hope you guys are doing really well. It's funny. I'm on conference calls like this around the country, and I'll give you a bit of background. But the initial glimpse, when we look at Zoom and get used to looking at everybody, I think everybody's expressions are relatively the same at this point. There's a lot of fatigue. There's a lot of questions. There's a lot of people trying to figure out what's going on. But I appreciate the chance and the invite to be here. So a little bit about my background. I've been here in Colorado. I started out a academy-style training program called Colorado Shine about 20 years ago. And started with a small training bucket, a handful of kids like a lot of you guys. I'm not sure everybody's background, but got started small and have since built that into a fairly high six-figure net business that's run for 18 of those 20 years on a very efficient schedule. We do a lot of the similar things. Chris Menig, this is the first time I've seen you, but I've seen your name on absolutely everything. We've been part of USJN and had our teams running in your system for a long time. And I'm looking at some of the different club names here, and I'm wondering if we've ever run across each other competitively over the years, but it's great to see everybody. But been an entrepreneur and a business owner and working in this space for a couple of decades from the training side. My background is in business development and sales and large scale marketing. And I applied that into this industry. So I think what we've seen, we've been impacted just like you guys from a club perspective and an organization perspective. And we have currently about 700 active members in our program annually. And we train, hundreds of kids like you guys do and working through competitive teams and whatnot. So the business model has definitely been impacted by that. And I think everybody is in a bit of a unique situation with, your setup, whether you have overhead, a facility, how your brand is built, whatever's going on. So one of the things that we've started doing, and I was excited to meet Lisa and the other directors, but one of the things that my organization does is we actually consult with programs and try to help from startup level to those that are existing, try to consult and kind of guide them through just a strategy during this time. No one has specific answers, but we try to provide some insights and some feedback on an individual basis. And so we've been meeting with programs around the country like Lisa's and other from every coast really, talking to folks about what's happening right now. And just trying to share some best practices about ways to navigate this from the business side of things, from the financial side of things, from staff management, from marketing and promotion, and more importantly, trying to keep focused on how to plan for what will be the transition out of this phase and prepping our businesses and our brands to take advantage of there are a lot of opportunity that's popping up and will continue to pop up once we get through this. So that's a bit of a nutshell. But I'm just happy to be here and just try to glean some information and just understand what everybody's dealing with. Lisa and I have had some tremendous conversations and obviously a tremendous amount of respect for her particular program. So just congratulations for being leadership in the space. We've got a lot of people counting on us and a lot of people, a lot of families, a lot of kids, and everybody wants answers. And under the circumstances, we're dealing with a situation where, there's not a definitive answer. Everyone wants to be reassured of what's next and when is it going to end and what do I do specifically? And there's just not that answer for this, but there are a lot of opportunities to take a look internally at our brands, to take a look at how we're marketing, leveraging technology, how we're connecting with people. And what we've seen is actually an expansion in several different programs, and we're seeing facilities around the country, those that are staying innovative, that are dealing with today but planning for tomorrow. And I think doing that and staying agile with that is really the key. And I think there's going to be a lot of great things that come on the back end of this that we're learning about ourselves in the industry. So anyway, Lisa, I appreciate me being able to pop in here, and thank you very much for the invite. So I look forward to connecting with you guys in the future.
And at the end, after our meeting is done, I'll make sure to provide an opportunity for everybody for me to collect everybody's information and push it back out. So I'll share Rob's contact information if you do want to connect with him in the future. At this time, I'm going to launch a poll, an anonymous poll. Can you guys see it? Or no? Probably not. Okay, let's try this. It's only the second time I've launched a poll. So, okay, so I'm asking a question, and again, this is anonymous. We have 32 people in this space. What is the state of your business right now? And this is very subjective words. If you can answer, don't feel bad if you're in one space or another. I've been in all of them mentally at one point or another. So I'll let you read through. It's just to get a some feel for how people are doing at this time. Okay, and I'll let it go for 30 more seconds. Okay, looks like we have 25 of 32 responses, and I will end the poll right now. So it looks like I'm going to share these results with you. Not sure how it's going to come through, but the majority of people, there's a couple people who answered that they've used this opportunity to generate some new cash for them. Most people answered that you're stable with minimum losses regardless if the season happens or not. And another portion of people said that they're concerned. They're concerned about what may come down the pipe. And this is where, you know, honestly, we've sat for a long time with zero revenue, with running a facility with zero revenue, continued expenses. We ended up as a company for Blaze, we pushed out a survey to our families to see get a gauge for where they're at, and who may need refunds right away, regardless of if there's a season or not. And so it's been interesting to see those responses. And so, you know, we're in that concern phase because we don't have control over the government all the time. So, okay. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Courtney. Courtney, oh, here we go. Somebody,
I'm here.
You here, Courtney? Okay, wonderful. Yeah, Courtney. Oh, you are so pretty. You don't have a picture up. Your personal.
I get her. Okay, I'll turn on my video.
I stalked her just last night, so get her a link so that you guys from our directors page or agenda that I sent out, there's links to everybody's contacts who's presenting today, so you can get those. So Courtney, I'll just hand it over to you. So if you want to just use this time to share what's been going on through NCAA, what you've seen, that would be wonderful.
Right, yeah, I can do that. First, just wanted to say that I know this is a difficult time for all of you. It's extremely difficult and odd and just crazy in general, personally for everyone. And then I know everyone working in this space, including myself, my pay doesn't come necessarily, you know, from running the programs and that kind of a thing. But it's extremely weird for me too, especially April, and that I wasn't running around like a chicken with her head cut off. The whole month was very weird. I know I talked with Lisa yesterday, and right now there's there are meetings going on, and I am hopeful that we will have updated information by middle of this month regarding July. I can't guarantee any of that. We are in communication with those decision makers on in our membership that are on these committees, but we don't make those decisions in my department. It's membership committee members. It's membership driven at the NCAA, and then those that are on those committees will make those decisions. But we have impressed upon them that sooner rather than later is best, but then we also want everyone to make decisions that are timely. So I know it's a real difficult balance there that to know what to do. So I'm hopeful that we'll have some information about July by the middle of the month. I would say we probably will also have a decision about what and with the June Scholastic, which I know maybe some of your kids participate in, maybe not, with their school team. And I don't know. I know some states have just already canceled those that are either NFHS or that are that would be certified through the NCAA. But regardless, June and July information, I'm hopeful that we'll have something by the middle of the month. That's not, again, a guarantee, but it's something that I'm hopeful we'll have some information for you all about July and what would happen. I don't know if anyone has questions that they'd like to ask. I'm happy to help or answer what I can. Again, none of this is, there's no firm decisions. There have been no decisions made about anything. So if there's questions, I'm happy to, listen to what you have to say, and if you have speculations or recommendations, or if you've spoken with college coaches and would like to give some of that information to me, you can reach out to me through the contact that Lisa's provided. It's helpful for us to know so that we can pass that information on up through the committees. So if you have information that you'd like to share with me, I'm happy to receive that. But if you have any questions, I can take some.
Courtney, I'll start real quick with a question.
Sure.
I've heard from different athletes who are going to play at the next level. Some, I can say, like Milwaukee had mentioned that they're shut down all the way through July 31st, so the athletes won't be on campus. Whereas someone like who's going to Kansas, they're planning on bringing them onto the campus right now. So
Right.
It's interesting to see. Also Colorado, same thing, shut down through the summer, even though their numbers may be not as intense with COVID. Who is really impacting NCAA's decision? Are you guys just kind of your own entity where you're really making your own decisions by looking at the numbers across the country? Or is there influence in what your decision is? Does that make sense? Is there somebody influencing your decision directly?
Well, I think maybe you're talking about two separate things and may not. So the conferences and the schools themselves would make their own decisions about when they would resume classes on campus. So those aren't made at the national office. Those are made at the conference or based on those states, what those states allow, and then what their school or their conference has decided to do, which is a little bit different. Now, if you mean where the NCAA canceled like spring and summer championships, that was through, we have the COVID team, and then our Sports Science Institute, which is headed by Dr. Hainline. He's involved in that, and they are looking at daily. I know they meet daily, I think, and that they have are reviewing all the trends and the data that's coming in to try to make decisions based on the science and what's trending and what's happening for the future, as far as anything that would come out, any decisions that would be made by the NCAA on a national scale, not within each conference or each school. Some of those decisions are made at the school or conference level, like when, like you're stating, when some kids will go back to school and when some kids won't. That's at that level at this point. But the other like decisions about whether the dead period would be extended or when it will end, that would come from our COVID team that we have, and then some committees that are involved in that. And those are people from the membership, from the NCAA membership, and then our Sports Science Institute and things like that.
So
Does that help?
yeah, that does. So we don't have to necessarily apply what thinking is happening at the collegiate level with different conferences to what may impact us as an organization, AAU or tournaments and coaches going out and recruiting. They're really two separate things at this
Correct.
point.
Based on what you were saying before, it's two separate. Like when an institution is going to resume on-campus classes is not decided at was not and has not yet been something that was decided at the national level, at the NCAA national office or through our committee. It was those decisions are made through those conferences and their the schools.
I think Chris had a question. Chris, you want to ask?
Well, I think I was reading fake news, Courtney, on online, and I just was hoping for some confirmation. I'm guessing there's no real murmurs of everything, April, May getting shifted to August, September.
I probably read that same tweet you did.
Yeah, I turned it into fake news on
right.
Facebook.
So there is nothing concrete. There have been no new dates suggested at this time. There is information, like people are open to it, and there are the MBOC, the Women's Basketball Oversight Committees, along with the NABC and the Women's and the WBCA and all of those committees and organizations will have to come together if we're going to make a decision about what would happen with April and May. If we would offer dates in August or September. That is not there have been the tweet was stated as if it was 100% happening.
Right.
That hasn't been decided yet. If there will even be more dates. There are talks about talks right now. So, but no one would make a decision now for August or September. And I don't even know that would be considered very responsible to do that because we don't know yet.
We don't even know July.
Right, exactly. So ideally, if everything were, we were fine and every state has made it or whatever, made it through those 3 phases and we're back and running. That would be great if we could offer additional days to replace, if not all of the dates lost in April and May, but at least offer another weekend or something like that. Those things are being talked about. I'm hopeful that we'll maybe be able to add something. It would be helpful for the 2021 class and for you all as operators and coaches at NCAA certified events. So I'm hopeful, but I don't. That is.
Yeah.
It's not 100%, and it's definitely not like.
Well, the easy one would be to resurrect a September weekend since it's only been gone for a couple of years.
Right. Yeah.
And that's
there
been
is
the
talk
one.
of that.
The surprising communications I've had is how many colleges actually are. Yeah, like they're bringing it. I'm not even bringing it up. They're bringing it up to me that. Yeah, we need that back this year type of thing.
Okay, yeah, and that kind of information is helpful for us.
Especially like the mid-level, like Providence College and lower, like those are the schools that are like, it's really gonna impact their ability to do their jobs.
Right.
But anyway, that I figured as much, and so I figured we got to figure out July before we can figure out beyond that. So
right. Yeah. Thanks, Chris.
Does anyone else have a question for Courtney at this time? Oh, go ahead, Mary.
Hi, everybody. Good to see you all. Courtney, this was just a thought I had. Now everybody else can say what they think. As we're trying to, I'm listening to the different tournament directors and how they're going to change the format. Not as many fans, all that stuff. Has
Right.
anyone considered just allowing the 2021s to play in July if it comes down to that? Just to give them something?
Yeah, I don't know if that's been discussed or not. I think so far in discussions I've been involved in that it's not been limited to 2021. But I don't know if that would be a possibility or not. But no, I haven't really heard that as an or as an option. But I mean, it could be something that if we do offer additional dates, I don't know that it would be something you all would want to do, but maybe you, at your level, as a tournament, if you're running a tournament, if you would just want to do something for 2021 specifically, that way that would even be a more limited, closed group, offering less exposure, I suppose.
Mary, just to give you a heads up, I know about 5 years ago, maybe, or so, whatever it was, when I was in the business meeting in the WBCA, they voted on the idea of the spring being just a senior weekend, like adding a weekend in April that would just be for seniors, right? Kids that are unsigned looking for homes. That would be the only people. That only received, it was just over 50% of the WBCA thought that was a good idea and to do it, which is remarkable to me because those are the kids that need the most help.
Right.
So just to give you an idea that idea of just a single age has at least one of the groups that would push for something like that didn't overall see the value of it. Obviously, this is a little bit different circumstance, but sometimes when you put logic in front of people, they don't always see it. So, I mean, but anyway, so that's that. But.
Courtney, I have a question. What are some of the key factors that NCAA is looking at that would determine restoring the normal operations, quote unquote, normal operations? So as an example, if states are differing in terms of their comeback plans, is NCAA talking about, well, we have to have everybody back to normal before we allow NCAA coaches to come to our tournaments, or can it be all over the board? Has there been talk on that at all?
I don't really have any insight on that. I don't know if they're looking at those types of things. Meaning, and I'm asking if this is what you're meaning, like, say I'm in Indiana, so let's say Indiana, we're supposed to be open, and if everything goes correctly based on what Governor Holcomb has issued, that we would by July 4th be able to start having basketball tournaments, that kind of a thing. But then you've got maybe New York where they probably will not be at that stage. You're asking, would we want the NCAA, do they want everyone, like, would it have to be equal or allowable all the way around? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Okay. I really don't know if that's part of the discussion or not. At this point, I don't really have any insight on that.
Okay.
There are meetings taking place. Hopefully I would have more information about that. Or we would have more information on that, by the middle of this month, but I don't have anything on that right now.
Okay. In hearing the questions and ideas that were generated, it seems like what might be a good response is to come up with a document and maybe push out some ideas or thoughts or questions to people you have that might be on that committee. Would that be something that they would entertain in terms of, let's say our group wants to ask a certain number of questions, would they be responsive to that?
If you all want to do something collectively, I can get that to the right people for them to present that or provide that to those that are meeting and making the decisions. Absolutely, that's welcomed. So if you would like to do something like that, I don't know about. I mean, timing wise, I would prefer you to. It would be better if we could probably have it sooner rather than later. Not that it means this week, but yeah, if you wanted to get something together, they would. I could definitely get that to those who would put that before in the committee's hands.
Okay, I'll figure out how we can collectively gain comments and questions from our group that we can shoot your way sooner than later.
Okay.
And if there was a reliable source for NCAA updates and information, where would you send us to? Where you feel, like Chris had mentioned, with, you know, to avoid fake news out there. Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, the NCAA, the NCAA as a whole has like a Twitter and a page, but I'll put, I guess I can put, I mean, our website, I'll put it in here.
And correct me if I'm wrong, they normally send a blast.
Yeah,
As soon as that Twitter happens, like if you've been certified or approved or anything as a coach, those emails, everybody's going to get something normally, you know, within an hour of once they Twitter something out. So correct me if I'm wrong on that, Court.
No, you're right. So for us, as soon as I know something, we're going to email it to all of you if you're in our system, and we will post that email on our website, which is what I have up right now. What we have up there is essentially what you all got probably around May 1st when the dead period was extended to the 31st. I have a couple other resources that I'm happy to share. I sent it actually to a couple people today. This is not specifically related to events happening, but I know you all have PSAs out there that maybe have signed and some that haven't signed, and there's like a infographic that was provided or was tweeted, and I think it was really helpful to know what they can and cannot be doing right now with recruiting. So I was going to share that with you all also.
Thank you. And I'll copy that into a document for everybody as well, and share afterwards. If you guys don't, like if you're on a phone and it's not easy for you to grab it. For those of you who may not use technology or be familiar with the technology that's out there, please know that there are different ways that you can push out your athletes' information to college coaches. There's a lot of recruiting software platforms like Field Level, Sports Recruits, Captain U, that give you the opportunity to support your athletes and connecting your athletes to those coaches. A passion of mine is trying to help our athletes find the right next fit. And so we have a program we put in place to guide the families and the athletes along that journey one-on-one, as I feel, you know, not our goal as organizations is not just in development, but for those athletes who are looking to continue their career, implementing some sort of program into your businesses that allows them to do that. And I've really found having those software platforms in place, educating your athletes and families about those has really, really helped me as a director and owner and our families to have that ability to step into that next phase of their careers. And I can, in a document, I can put out some ideas if you're not familiar with that, and some links to different platforms. Raise your hand if you actually provide some sort of software technology to connect your athletes with college coaches. Just raise your hand so we can see.
Hey, Lisa, sorry, I'm going to jump off here. Just wanted to let you know I was going to jump off.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, if anybody needs anything, feel free to reach out to me. Thanks.
Thank you, Courtney, so much.
Yep.
Okay, next we have Jeremy Fiesfeld. I hope I'm saying that correctly. He is our representative from Assembly District number 52 from Fond du Lac. There's a lot of people on. Right now there's 35, so I can't find you on my screen, Jeremy, so I'm hoping you're still there. And
I'm here.
your time you are. Wonderful. So feel free to take it over and share where you're at and where you see Wisconsin at and how we can move forward.
Well, good morning, everybody. Sorry for the inadvertent message that Sherry Norgard and I were having a conversation. We have some mutual friends that we discovered when we saw ourselves online here together. But I have been working Facebook messaging back and forth with Cheryl Moore for a few weeks on this particular issue. I spent a lot of time coaching myself in high school, played basketball extensively, so I understand what all of you are going through in the uncertainty that has been created by the government. And so with Cheryl's assistance, I have been communicating with the governor's legislative liaison frequently, trying to get a response out of them as to what sort of direction can be given to all of you and other similar organizations, whether they be basketball or baseball or whatever sport it might be. Because there needs to be an understanding that all of you cannot just simply suddenly start up a season. There's a whole great deal of planning that goes on. You have gyms that you have to rent, and right now, apparently public schools, well, actually all schools are probably telling you across the state of Wisconsin that they can't do anything for you until after June 30th, which I was trying to figure out why that particular date was being used, but I figured it out a day or two ago that that's the official end of the school year is June 30th, since we run on a fiscal year from July 1st to June 30th. And the governor's most recent order ended the school year. And so therefore, that's why there are no usages of the facilities until after June 30th. I just yesterday had a direct letter sent from myself to the governor, which I told Cheryl she certainly has the ability to share with all of you. I also think it would be beneficial for all of you to do something similar to that. Because being in the legislature, you understand that there's strength in numbers. And the more letters that the governor's office receives like that, the better. Now, the key problem in all of this is something that a lot of citizens are finding out who have these issues is you can't get through to anybody. You know, you got thousands of people who are trying to contact the DWD to get unemployment insurance. I'm sure some of you have perhaps struggled with that. And there are no easy answers to that. People have tried to email and call the governor's office, and they aren't able to get through. Apparently, back when the governor made his most recent order, which stretched this out till May 26th, for a period of 27 hours, he was getting an email every 8 seconds. So it's pretty overwhelming for them to keep up with the pace of what's before them. But it's pretty clear they didn't really anticipate or plan ahead for what was going to happen as a result of these orders. So the tactic that I have tried to go is to go directly with the legislative liaison. That's what that person is there for, is to communicate with the legislature. And I have gotten responses from that person, but they generally have come along the line of tell these organizations to go to the WEDC, which is the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation. And there's a way on there that you can appeal to have your business declared essential. And I don't know if any of you have done that or not, but I suspect that they probably would say that you are not essential, because playing basketball, of course, is going to involve close contact with people. And that is really the only direction we've been given at this point. And so the next tactic was because I know others have had success with a direct letter to the governor. And so that's why I went that next step. to try to get a response from them. And it isn't so much I was asking that you be allowed to do what you normally do. I think all of you are willing to make some changes going ahead if that's necessary in order to benefit the families particular, so that their kids can have this opportunity and not miss out on it, because there's a window to do this, and when it's gone, it's gone. It doesn't come back again. So I think all of you need to be willing to make a plan for yourself as to what sort of concessions you're going to make, particularly with the crowds that would normally come to the games, the cleaning of the facilities that you would be using, probably some ideas of how you're going to make food service, or perhaps not have food service available, might be the safest option. All of those sorts of things will be things that you need to think about ahead of time. With that being said, in the background of all of this is probably the most watched oral argument before the state Supreme Court in state history yesterday, where the legislature is challenging the governor's ability to keep the state locked down beyond his 60-day emergency powers, which expire on May 11th. I would anticipate, if not by Friday, hopefully by Monday, that we'll have a decision out of the Supreme Court as to whether the governor can continue to exert that authority through the Department of Health Services, or whether that ends with his 60 days. Now, I'm going to think positively here that we are going to see a favorable decision come out of the Supreme Court, and they're going to say that the governor's emergency powers end on Monday. A lot of people are saying that, oh, well, that means everything goes back to normal on Tuesday. And that is not necessarily the case. Part of the request of the lawsuit the legislature filed was that if the court decides in our favor, that there would be a 6-day period where the Department of Health Services would work with the legislature to promulgate an administrative rule. That's legislator talk, I know, but that essentially all of these orders that have been coming out from the Department of Health Services, those have been essentially administrative rules, and they have the strength of law. And so they would need to promulgate a new set of rules, and the legislature would have to be involved. And there would be, hopefully, I would be working hard to make sure that there would be some sense of return to normalcy, and that organizations such as all that you are running and other sports are going to be able to start some planning and getting the kids back out again. Because as we've seen from this disease, it's terrible, but it does not affect children. And there are serious questions as to whether or not school should have even been shut down when we look at this in hindsight, but we didn't know that 2 months ago. So I think we know a lot more than we did before, and I'm hoping for a favorable decision out of the Supreme Court quickly so that we can start rolling out of this in a very logical and reasonable fashion. So that's my speech, and I'd be happy to field any questions if anybody has any.
I actually have one. I've been collecting them for a long time now. So, Jeremy, so should we be looking at, there's been so much on social media regarding whether or not somebody can reopen, that these are guidelines, not necessarily law or legislation. You're not going to be thrown in jail, you're not going to be fined, although then you see some people who've lost licenses, like hairdressers. What is your understanding of this emergency order, but also the extension for the Safer at Home, in terms of whether or not we have to strictly abide by them? And I guess I'm coming from somebody who runs a gym fitness facility. And I really see running teams differently than allowing 1 to 2 people in our facility at a time, 84 feet apart, which is much more safe than going to Menards or Walmart where there's hundreds of people, and putting in safety measures. So if I can prove we are not just as safe, but even more safe in managing and running our facility, can we do that regardless of what's been posted? Or is it law where if they say we're not essential, we're not essential and we've got to keep our doors closed?
Well, there are 2 kinds of laws in Wisconsin. You have the Schoolhouse Rocks version, where it goes through the legislature and the governor signs it into law. And then you have the version that are administrative rules. Administrative rules are kind of the skin put on the bones. So the legislature passes a law, and then the details of how that law is administered is added through administrative rules. So just to give just an example of this, the legislature gives people the authority, if you get a license, to drive on the roads in Wisconsin. Administrative rule would be to tell you perhaps what kind of car you can drive, what other sort of vehicle, what the speed limits are going to be, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's kind of what is done by these agencies when you hear about administrative rules. Those rules that they put out generally have to go by the legislature, and it's usually a committee. And they have not done that with all of these emergency orders that have been put out through the Department of Health Services. Those have simply come out of the governor's office. Now, he has the ability to do that for 60 days. That's written in the statutes, but that 60 days expires on Monday next week. So after Monday, our view is that he does not have that authority anymore, that any of those orders that are going to come out after Monday must go through the legislature in the normal process of forming administrative rules. And that's the heart of the lawsuit that had the oral arguments yesterday. As for the enforcement of it, a lot of that has come down to your county or your municipality. You may have seen press releases coming out from a few county sheriffs or a few city councils or village boards where they have said, we want you to do certain things, but, we're not going to be out there finding people or arresting anybody. So if you're going to do something like that, I would encourage you to probably check with your local authorities and find out what their level of comfort is with what it is that you want to do. So that would be my suggestion here. But there's just so much that's going to, things will be much more clear once we have that Supreme Court decision in place. And I wish I could tell you that when they'll give you a decision, but I don't know of anybody who's ever been able to dictate to a court when they're going to decide something. They kind of move at their own pace. So they understand the urgency, so and they're responsible people, so I would assume that they will give us a decision here, hopefully by Monday. But as for moving ahead on your own, outside of what is involved here, I think that you also have to be cautious of public perception of your organizations as well. You don't want to be perceived as somebody who is taking chances. There also are legal aspects of this that all businesses are worrying about, because even if the okay is given to open, say, the local flower shop, if somebody goes into that local flower shop and one of the employees is infected and then they get sick because of that, they're facing lawsuits. And you could also be facing something like that from someone who shows up at one of the games or one of the practices. And so those are all things that you need to approach this with some level of caution, because one thing we do know out of all of this is there are going to be a whole bunch of lawyers who are going to make a lot of money. And I would hope that it wouldn't be any of your organizations that end up having to pay them. And the other thing is that right now, I don't think there's any kind of insurance for this type of thing. Your umbrella policies, I've been told, don't necessarily cover this. So that may be something you want to look into with your local insurance agent that is working with your businesses. So I wish I could give you more definitive answers on that. And there's hypocrisy all over the place on this, such as, I can buy some jewelry at Kohl's. Well, I can't at Kohl's because they're closed. How about Target? Okay, I can buy some jewelry at Target, but I can't go down to my local jewelry shop and do that. I can buy flowers at Pick and Save, but I can't go down to the local flower shop and do that. And that's part of the problem with these laws too, is that there seems to be a great deal of favoritism involved in who is allowed to operate and who is not.
Would anyone like to ask Representative Jeremy Thiesfeld any questions? Now is the time.
Oh, I've got one quick one. If we get approval from, local fire chiefs, police lieutenants, people in those areas of where these facilities are, of our practices of what we're going to do, would you recommend that be the best step? Because at least then we've been proactive. We communicated with the people that probably would get the complaints in the front line anyway. That's what we've tried to do in all the different states with the facilities that we've communicated with.
Yeah, that would be, I think, your best step. A question I would have in return would be, I don't know what kind of licensing there is for your organizations, if there's any, and who issues that license. Does it come out of a county or does it come out of the state?
Good question.
And there maybe isn't any, and the reason I ask that is because if it comes out of the state would be the enforcement arm and possibly pulling a license. So such as like a salon operation, I think they receive state licensing, and that's why they're afraid to cut hair, even privately, because they're afraid their license is going to get pulled by the state, because the state is the enforcement arm for that. In my thought here, since I'm not aware of any kind of state licensing that you have, and I think you would know it if you had it because you would have had to pay for it.
We're the traveling circus. We're the event operators.
Yeah.
So we go all over the country.
Sure.
So anyway.
Probably at bigger risk would be the facilities that you use, that you don't own those. And so those facilities might have some sort of a licensing that would be put at risk. But then again, if your fire chief gives you the thumbs up, I don't see the state coming in and trying to shut you down.
Right.
It's an
And
enforcement.
we've been communicating with the owners of those facilities as
Yes.
well. Two of us basically, we need to be standing arm in arm to get that approval, basically, from those people. That's how we've been communicating with them.
So we do have Adam from the Champion Center here, along with Matt from Sports Enhancement Academy. Do you guys have any knowledge or communication you can share with us for those facilities?
Well, I mean, right now, our only suggestions from not only like the local officials, but a few state officials is we have to wait until the stay-at-home order is either lifted or, I don't know, changed up before we can, right now we're not even allowed in our building. Our whole building shut down because it's just sports. So it's our building, and then it's our part of the building, and then physical therapy and an Anytime Fitness. So all three of those are shut down and our whole building's locked up. So we haven't been in there since March. And we're just waiting to see if the governor loosens things up so we can get at least, I don't know, do some training kind of stuff, but yeah, we've been completely shut down. So it's been tough for sure.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit here up in Appleton on the Champion Center. So we're actually owned by the town of Grand Chute. So they own our building and they have significant input on any of our operations anyway. So we have had conversations with the fire chief and the inspectors and things like that. Similar as to what everybody else is saying, until the safer at home orders lifted, we can't operate, but we have had significant discussions with them on the different phases and how we could operate within those phases once we get to that. So once we get to that, we would be able to operate in the 10-person maximum, and we would just need to share with them and the public a plan of how we're going to keep the groups from interacting with each other, entering and leaving the building, or while they're here, just to make sure we don't have any crisscrossing of groups.
Kyler, do you have any insight from Just a Game on this topic?
Yeah, I think everyone's in the same boat here. Just a lot of unknowns. We're kind of in a holding pattern here too. I did have a couple things down. You know, we're kind of on an island here in the Dells. You know, it's a small market unless the tourists are in town and people can travel and stay over and make a destination out of it. So we're a little fearful about coming out of this, the 2 phases. You know, if they allow 10 people in a gym, do we even want to put forth the effort to do anything with the market that we're in?
Right.
You know, our business is running tournaments. We don't do a lot of the small group training like a lot of you do. So we're really just waiting until that phase 3 that we're open and we can start running tournaments again at full go. That being said, as long as I got the mic, and a lot of you that are kind of in our area with your programs, you know, as we come out of this, our gym is going to be available. So if you need practice space, small group training space, whatever it might be, don't be afraid to reach out. I think the biggest value of what you kind of put together here, especially speaking for the Wisconsin people, is just that we can kind of come together and support each other and yeah, try to get a little revenue coming in, keep the kids playing. I think that's the most important thing. I did have, you know, one thing that I'll say when we get open, if it's this summer, whether that be June or July, we haven't made any changes to our schedule just yet. Those of you that are familiar with it, you know, we're running tournaments every weekend. Come June and July, we're doing stuff on the weekdays too. We might look at doing just 1-day stuff, kind of more of that, you know, just 3-game round robin and get out of here. That's what a lot of our tournaments are anyways. And I think with how hesitant some people might be to travel, stay overnight, that's probably the direction we're going to go. So that's kind of, like I said, a lot of unknowns, but we're just waiting, and that's kind of where we stand.
So thanks, Kyler. I think that's the biggest dilemma is, even though the Safer at Home order might be lifted, for businesses running a facility, they make their money on numbers and crowds and getting as many people through at one time. So even though that order gets lifted, it doesn't mean that the facility will necessarily open up, because they have to gauge on whether or not pushing 10 people through versus 100, which, you know, is it going to be a loss at the end of the day? And, you know, you can't run at a loss for an extended period of time. And actually, that's the next topic that I'd like to push us through with our last 15 minutes. Does anybody else have any questions for Jeremy? Okay, thank you so much, Representative Jeremy Feistfeld. I don't know if I should call you by your first name or last name. what's politically?
I get called a lot of names. So.
There you go. I won't call you anything bad. So
no, thanks for the opportunity. If you need me again, just let Cheryl know. I'd be happy to help out.
Thank you so much for taking the time to discuss this with us and give us some more information. We appreciate that. Okay, so in our final session, it's really about, actually before we go into that summer partnerships on the agenda, I allotted 10 minutes, and I'll give different people time to talk. One future meeting we could have is just giving people ideas on how to get through this time to generate some income, or just to, we've talked a lot about what can we do right now as an organization to provide for families who've already paid into our programs, to make them feel like they have, they're getting something of value back. That's a conversation that Rob Pearson from Colorado and I, along with the others in our other group, have talked about. So we see a lot of people who are going on Zoom YouTube Live, to provide, or Famer is another one, to provide some sort of online virtual training. So in a document, I'll send some of those ideas out to everybody as well. I think for us who might be one or two people running the show, it's difficult to just all of a sudden, create a new business model or a piece of a business model and run that effectively and efficiently, put in any extra cash to do that. So a thought I've had, and it's going to tie into the summer partnerships, maybe there's a way that you can connect with other organizations who've already started or done it, work out a plan or some collaboration to share a platform for your families. So that's something that I thought we could talk about next time if you guys are up for it. But for right now, in terms of summer partnerships, I really wanted to give this opportunity for the different organizations like USJN. So Chris, just to give us an update on what you're doing with your tournaments, what safety measures you're putting in place, and then we'll move through the Champion Center and Matt at Sports Enhancement Academy and Kyler again. I've been talking to Adam from the Champion Center about potentially offering leagues during that June period, where we could collaborate with everybody around the state and say we host different age groups at different locations to keep numbers small, to show, hey, we're taking safety measures, but we do it collectively as a state. So that is an idea I'd like to throw out, but I know that's a whole nother topic on its own and may warrant another meeting. But I'll give Chris Menning the time right now if you want to share where USJN is at.
Yeah, and I briefly touched upon it when I asked that question. I think the biggest thing is for us in the various regions is, getting, people, police, fire lieutenants, all those people behind the facility and us of clearance. Like Indiana now has a step stage of what they're talking about. And so now we know, okay, June 20th, supposedly we can do a 50-person event at that point in time. And again, it comes back to crunching numbers and figuring out if it's financially feasible. Our plan is to still do it. From your guys' standpoint, I think we just ordered some masks, knowing that spectators are probably going to have to, no matter what we go back to sports-wise, spectators are going to have to wear them. So we're not planning on, people have them at that point. They should. We're really just kind of having those there in case they don't. We're not planning to give them away across the board with our stuff. One thing I would encourage, since we got a lot of club directors here right now, the biggest thing, and I'm assuming you've done it, but you've got a captivated audience, get all your NCAA stuff done. Your coaches, your players, get all of those things done now if you haven't already, so that whenever things do come about, it's not a chasing game of getting this person to get signed up or whatever. So we've really tried to hammer that home with everybody right now while you're all sitting in front of your computers. And we're kind of at the mercy of seeing what the NCAA does. I know brand-wise, we're trying to make sure we're actually looking into giving all video of all USJN events to college coaches for $0 to be able to watch at home, to make that appealing, both as club coaches and also for the college coaches. If they're not going to be able to go out, then they're going to want to watch content. And so our hope is, even if it's a smaller sized event of 30 or 40 teams, it's being videoed, and all the college coaches across the country have access to it for free, and getting them those codes before the events even happen. So that's our plan and hope. But I'm going to let other people talk. I know I've popped in here a little bit here and there, but if anybody has any direct questions, I'd be more than willing to answer.
Another tournament director from Ohio basketball is Tucker. It's O'Neill Tucker, is that right? I'll give him Neil, Tucker Neil, I apologize. Let us know. I know you spent a lot of time. You actually run, right, Chris, run tournaments in multiple states. And what is your outlook on things moving forward, and what are those safety measures you're putting in place to hopefully allow directors like us to just feel comfortable and confident in communicating to our families that, hey, we can make this happen safely?
Yeah, so thank you. I mean, this is great that you guys are all on a call like this. You know, I'm here in Cleveland, Ohio. We run events in 9 different states. So kind of, you know, we've been tracking this thing pretty strongly, so like Chris has and all you guys have. A couple of thoughts that I have, just as a club director, I run a club of over 100 teams. Our insurance definitely does not apply to this. You know, so everyone's on the same page. No matter what your insurance policy says, there is no coverage for virus at any level. So, you know, all of a sudden the liability waiver becomes a lot more important for all of us. Make sure in all your events that you have a liability waiver. Every single attendee signs. It's virus and COVID specific. I know a lot of us go to tournaments and you'll send something in and say, okay, I'm bringing 5 teams to this event. And we really don't have a waiver for all those teams as tournament directors and as club directors. So in this new environment, make sure you marry those two things. You know, I've sat down with quite a few lawyers and talked to quite a few government officials, and this new norm is going to be a real thing. And so us club directors have to make adjustments, and tournament directors got to make the same type of adjustments to make sure that, you know, if a kid does get it, you know, right now in the state of Ohio, 0 children, you know, 0 people under the age of 19 have died because of this thing. 1 person under 30 has died from it. You know, so we know that it's not a high-risk group, but all of a sudden we're kind of put on the front lines like a lot of other people if we don't have the proper pieces in place. So I highly recommend that piece. I am on 2 different task forces. I'm on the Kentucky task force to get sports going, and also the Ohio task force with both governors. So we're trying to push up policy. You know, we're really pushing hard from our level to get things done. The task force in Ohio, you know, we actually have direct access to our governor. So all the different sports, I'm representing basketball in our state, you know, so I can actually send you guys kind of a format that we're looking at. We broke it down into, you know, what our employees should do, what spectators should do, what players, referees, scorekeepers, and coaches should do, what physical spaces should do, event administration should do, and also contact tracing. So we have a bunch of different levels. We're talking about getting back at a gradual level. You know, in our state, I know Indiana's definitely the most aggressive in Georgia that I've seen out there. But some of these things are important. Contact tracing is now a world we're all going to live in. You know, it's a world that, you know, every one of us has to have this information, every single participant in a tournament. You know, we have it as employees, we have it, employees, you have it. It's pretty simple. But when you have a 600 team event, contact tracing is now a new norm. If a health department calls you and you don't have that information, I ran an event March 6th and 7th here in Cleveland for volleyball, and a young girl actually had COVID. And I was one of those 20 people on that list that she listed. And at that point, contact tracing wasn't even talked about. You know, I was not ready for it. I didn't know whose team she was on. I figured it all out. You know, we had to figure out the schedule. It took us all day. Well, the health department wants answers that second. So it's a very different norm than we're used to. So when they call, they expect to know exactly what happened, who in that building was she around. You know, and if you don't have all that information, it doesn't hold well for your organization at the governmental level. So that's something you definitely got to look at as you're kind of going forward here, how contact tracing is going to impact all of our businesses, whether you're a facility, event operator, or someone in, you know, at the club level. In our state, the Cavs started practicing yesterday or 2 days ago. So, you know, they're giving a different level of ability to do things than we are. You know, I know all the NBA teams are going back in the facilities and starting to move in a direction. You know, I know they're staying away from each other, but I think next Monday they start doing some team stuff. So the day is definitely coming. We're all going to have that opportunity to do some of these things. Another big area that the government's talking about is common areas. You know, how are you taking care of common areas? It's an open area. You know, they don't want people congregating. You know, we just put a 25-page proposal into the government of Kentucky for how our new safety guidelines for Run for Roses and all the other events we're doing in Kentucky. You know, every facility, every tournament is going to have to go by these same type of guidelines. Does it mean you need thermal imaging technology at the front door? No. But are you have to have some temperature reader? Yes. Are we going to have that every practice? Yes. Is it a perfect solution? You know, unfortunately, no. But it's what the government is kind of understanding now, and it's the language they're talking, and they want us to talk that language. So I put out an 8-page thing, you know, all the things we were doing for our tournament, just for the public to see, spacing and all the modifications. I'm sure Chris is doing the same thing. Other event operators around the country are all doing the same type of stuff. But every state has its own rules and regulations what they're going to go by. And it sounds like in Wisconsin, you guys are still trying to figure out that piece. As your group here that you have, if you put something together and try that push-up policy, you know, you have someone in your legislature on this call, and you can push up the ideas. It's a lot better situation to be in than them pushing down and telling you exactly what you got to do. So I think there's strength in numbers here. And so you guys getting together, and like I said, I can help you as much as possible. Like I said, I'm doing this in 2 states already, where I can show you what we're actually putting together for these states. And it just puts us as event operators and club directors in a much better position. I don't really want a government official telling me how to run a basketball tournament. I don't think that's their expertise. You know, it's what we all do well. We all coach kids well. We all run good clubs. We all run good events. If we can have some influence on how that is decided at the next level, we'll all be in a way better situation.
Absolutely. Thank you for being willing to share your approach and how you're going to go and open this up at that next phase. Guys, raise your hand. How many of you would be willing to come together, and if we had one document that was created that addressed all these things that Tucker talked about in terms of the thermal reading, spacing, common areas, how we're handling staffing and things like that, would you want to be a part of that, to say, hey, these are our Wisconsin sports directors guidelines that we're using, we're implementing them, and we bring that to our local municipalities in one force? Raise your hand if you guys would be willing to do that or be a part of that. I know I would. In March, we had policies in place that we were going to roll out. It didn't hit all these things, but as time moved on, I see the need for more of these areas to be addressed. And if, rather than everybody doing it on their own and coming up, if we can do it collectively, I think that would make more sense, so that we can support each other moving forward. Because I know if I'm in Appleton, I want to go down to Stoughton or Verona or just a game, I need to make sure that we tell our families, hey, you can be confident that what we're doing here in Appleton is also the approach that's happening elsewhere in the state. So I think we can really rely on each other for that. So what I'll do is connect with Tucker and Chris and collect those approaches, those systems, and just as simple as starting a document and pulling you all together to collaboratively share on that, and then finalizing those, creating a document, and then moving forward with the next step to approach our local municipalities and state. So Adam, do you want to address the team on the Champion Center and thoughts you have moving forward? Thank you, Tucker and Chris.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I can talk. So we're operating under the assumption that when Safer at Home gets lifted, that we will be able to let 10 people in our facility. We have 8 courts, so we have separated our facility so that we can keep people from entering separate doors and at least run 4 courts at a time. So that would pretty much be a practice-only situation, and we have all kinds of different social distancing guidelines and sanitation procedures and stuff that we have in place. So when this gets lifted, we're expected, you know, like Kyler had said, like we're available for practices and things like that. So if anybody needs that, they can certainly reach out to me. I've been more planning on what happens when we get to that new normal, that phase 2 or phase 3 thing, and how are we going to operate with crowds, games, social distancing, different things. So one of the things that I've kind of floated around to Lisa and some other clubs out there is if we can get to that 50-person phase 2 guideline, can we bring 4 clubs together at a time and have them play just some games, like a 3-game guaranteed? You bring them all in. That there's, whether we can do fans or not at the Champion Center, we could do some spectators because we have some balcony seating and things like that. But if we kept the groups small and we could have people come in for 3 or 4 hours, they wouldn't be in contact with that many other groups, that many other people, and we could keep them really separate. And then we could take another hour, clean the facility, and then do that again. So you guys on the call now, I know a lot of people have different ideas of how they want to run their programs, but if we could get 4 clubs to commit to an age group and we could start, communicating with each other and coming up with ways that we could at least get some of these kids to play some games and film them and get some, tape out there, and, we can do it at all the facilities on this call. I know there's a lot of different facilities, different geographic regions in the state, on here right now, that so we could reduce travel, and do that kind of stuff. The other thought we were having is instead of doing it on the weekends, maybe we do them during the day, or maybe we do them, on a Thursday night or a Wednesday night or something like that, so that we can spread it out and not bring so many people together at once. So that's kind of what we're working on. When that happens, I have no idea. I don't know if we'll be in phase 1 for 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, 3 days. I have no idea, but those are the kind of things that we're kind of trying to plan on our end. And we're not really just using it for club basketball. We're thinking about using it for, different high school sports and things like that when we can open that up for leagues as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Adam. And I think that would be our next major topic, is what we can do right now, and also what we can do in the next phase in June as things get lifted. So I'll leave it at that right now. I know that we're a little bit over, and I'll just open it up with questions and answers. Does anybody have any questions or comments from you personally or from your organization professionally that you would like to provide to the team?
Lisa, is there a way to get, this is great, this group of people, to get us all connected via email, like one big bulk email? So when we have things that we might be able to do or whatever, that we can contact each other. I know some of you guys have facilities, some of us don't. It'd be really great, if we come up with things and ideas that we could share them with each other.
Absolutely.
Instead of bouncing around trying to find each other's emails.
Yeah, I actually was going to take time to pull that all together. So what I'll do to help in that process is I'll send out like a survey and document to gather that information for everybody, and also poll if everybody wants to do this again and when, whether or not, I mean, feel free to just talk, you guys. I mean, would you want, I know that Richie, you've had some other meetings as well. How are those going? And would you guys like to do this again in a week or in 2 weeks? What works for you collectively, or the majority? I know there's more topics that we have to push through. Did you guys like this? I feel like I'm talking to my athletes. You can respond. All right, give me a thumbs up if this was helpful for you. Hey, TR. Awesome, cool. Go ahead.
I have one quick question of Tucker. With the states like opening at different times, has there any been discussion of, let's say, a Wisconsin team and our state's, a team going to Ohio to play? I've had some people in our program, well, why don't we go play in Florida? Why don't we go do this? And I'm like, I don't even know if that's doable.
Tucker, you're on mute. Tucker, you're on mute.
I got you, Tucker. Oh, nope.
Thank you.
There you go.
Sorry, knew the Zoom thing. We've had questions about, like, people not wanting to play teams from certain hotspots. That question has come up. Knowing that Indiana is, far ahead of other people, they're starting tournaments on June 14th, where they can full go and do the whole thing. And then July 4th, the whole state is completely open, as long as they don't have any setbacks. So that's definitely something people are talking about. I don't know how much people are going to stay overnight, these first couple weeks in June, with all the stuff that's going on. I don't see a lot of people flying all over the country right now. Maybe July they feel a little more comfortable. August they feel even more comfortable. But I think, the way we're scheduling, actually part of our proposal is do block scheduling only, or teams only play back-to-back, which I know is not for local events, not for national events, but for local events, to have teams, team 1 play team 2, team 3 play team 4, 1 play 3, 2 play 4, and then everyone leave the building. So they basically play from 9 to 11. And at that point, they're done. Our tournaments are not going to be tournaments here in Ohio in June. It's going to be probably 3 weekends of that type of play. Just knowing that, with 50% capacity and some of the data that goes on here, a Kroger store that they look at 120 square foot per person. If I got a 64,000 square foot facility and I have 2 courts going on and 200 people in there, that's basically 320 feet per person. So these are all the numbers that go into as you start to try and push up a policy to the government and make some decisions and help them make some decisions. These are all things we're looking at in all these facilities of how much what's the real capacity of it? What are you going to do to get them in and get out? How do you make it touchless? So there's a lot of different pieces that go into that. But I think, knowing that Indiana's playing early, I would take my 7th grade girls team over there and play a game at 10, 11, and then come back home. I don't think my parents on June the 12th want to stay overnight and play again the next day. I think everyone has that going on right now from what I'm hearing.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Adam and I were talking about exactly what Tucker described in terms of a league in that three games, get a certain age group in, keep those in the building, and then move those out before you bring in another wave of people. So that's definitely a topic that we can address next time, and see what we can do as a community to work with each other. Because in my head I see, maybe the Barn and Blizzard is hosting one age group, and Champion Center is hosting another age group with that same format, if that's possible. So.
Yeah, for the first couple weeks, I think the new norm is that, and we just put it out there, if you brought in a bunch of fees, nobody wants to give them all back if this is your livelihood. So a way of doing that and a way of making this work is to get some type of level of play in. And we're even doing it in Ohio where we're doing a three weekend schedule and no teams paying to play. Parents are paying at the door. We're hoping that pays the fees. There's about 12 clubs that have gotten involved, and we're doing June 12th, June 19th, June 26th, as long as we're in that place, which I'm a tournament director, is not the model I want to have and not the model Chris wants and other guys in this phone and women that run tournaments. Is not the best model. But just to get going, and we have enough people working together now in Northeast Ohio that we're going to try and use this model of, all right, we can take 15 teams for the 8th grade division, and that's all we can take. And then you play 2 games on Saturday, 2 games on Sunday, and then we do that for 3 straight weeks. But no one's actually paying to be in this thing, and the gate is paying for everything else. And that way we can basically keep fees in the house, even though no one's really making any money, if that makes sense.
Something for all of you guys to toss around in your mind, and Lisa, maybe you can do a vote or something the next time, and I'm sure Tucker would feel the same way. If we're able to charge a little bit more on our team fees to play in these things, we can get rid of gate, and not have that social interaction, touch, that whole extra staffing, all of those things, especially in this short term, because as it is right now, we're going to probably have to limit how many people we let in the door in the first place, and not many are going to show up. Now, that might be 250, 300, 4 or 5, depending on the size of the event, on the fees of what it costs for teams to play in the events. And that's the reason why, as event operators, we don't, right? I mean, everybody's like, oh, I wish we could get rid of gate. Well, the problem is if we put an event out there to pay $700 to play in it or $600 to play in it, you guys won't sign up. So, you know, and even if we advertised it as no gate, you still won't, because that affects what you're doing, not your parents' wallets. But in this particular scenario of where we're trying to limit that social touch, that's just something you guys, I mean, I'd be really, I've talked to another state about it too. Trust me, I'd love to get rid of buying bands and doing all that stuff. You know, but the problem is, as soon as you put that price point out there, your competitors are offering it for $300 or $400 less. And so everybody goes that direction because it's less, and then the parents are paying and taking the freight and not you guys having to deal with it. So that cultural piece, I don't know if it can get changed, but if there's going to be a time for it that would make some sense besides just the financial piece, now would probably be it. Because I know we're looking at some of that stuff for the fall, you know, anticipating that this stuff, you know, at this point, you've already done your fees, you've already done all of that stuff. You know, but anyway, just something, Lisa, I'd be really curious to get a straw vote on something like that, at least from this space and state at some point.
Okay.
And anyway.
Good. Well, I know that we're over time, so just to respect everybody's day, I will follow up with notes. I'll put out a document where we can gather everybody's email, contact information, name of your businesses, and then also a poll on when, if you want to meet again, and what those agendas and items could be that can impact you right now and moving forward. So with that, thank you everybody for participating. I really hope this was helpful to you, and I look forward to seeing you guys again. And Tucker, Chris, and our other building directors, I'll connect with you separately too, as I know you guys, it's kind of a different conversation, and maybe we can do some things on the side to help support the directors moving forward. We need each other. We definitely need each other.
Good luck, everyone.
Thank you, Lisa. Thanks, everyone.
Good luck, everybody.
Thank you.